So I have a few vaults to open across a couple of my characters. I went pretty hard on my Brewmaster and my Protection Paladin this week. I do have a few vault slots on my DH, but we're pretty much going to be exploring the vaults of these three characters, talking about my decision, and just generally talking about what's going on this week, because there is a new patch. We're going to start off actually with the Brewmaster Monk, and hopefully there's no insane bugs with the new patch being released. I don't know when servers came up. They must have come up a short while ago. We saw a lot of new changes or class changes in this most recent patch build. One of the ones that I'd like to talk about in this video actually is Shado-pan specifically. Because there's something that's really cool that is now kind of happening, and which reminds me I do need to update my week order pack. Before I open my vault, I do want to show you guys something really quick. Shado-pan got some pseudo buffs and some quality of life changes. So what happened was that they now added a flurry strike tracker. So as you hit your energy spending abilities, you're going to notice that it's going to go up. So right now I'm at 65. I'm going to throw a keg smash. I should go up to 105. There it is. And then now I can even spinning crane kick to give myself 25. So now I'm at 130. Now I'm at 155. Now I'm at 180. And what this means is that you can continuously spam spinning crane kick, and you will release flurry strikes, which is pretty cool. The Wisdom of the Wall buff should have been changed. Now, the one that does shadow damage has not changed, which is interesting because with like heroism, you might actually be able to high roll some pretty insane kind of, I don't want to call it RNG. The free keg smashes still don't count, which is kind of a bummer in my opinion. But we're able to expend these extremely quick to the point where we might even be able to double dip into the Wisdom of the Wall buff that does shadow damage, which is just really beneficial. The regular buff was reduced down to 16 seconds from 20, but they've reduced the Flurry Strike cost from 300 to 240. So an equivalent reduction across the board to keep everything kind of in line. So overall, this is really good. This also means that like weak auras can now track it. They did reduce the uptime on against all odds by 18%, so a slight technical increase. But overall, pretty good. I think the the flurry strike damage is going very hard there. The overall consensus seems to be that it is a slight buff, which might make it pull ahead a little bit of Master of Harmony. Not that Master of Harmony was very much better. It was equally powerful in both ends of content, or both forms of content, but that is a nice quality of life change. On top of that, they also made Weapons of Order now, it's green, and you have like little elf ears for some reason on this character, or this icon, but basically Weapons of Order now feels a little bit more thematic. When you hit it, you know, your hands glow. This has been a thing since, I think, Season 4 of Dragonflight is when they introduced this. But the Weapons of Order buff is now green instead of that like iconic white with the Weapons of Order from Shadowlands. Anyways, let's open our vault. We are going to be doing we are going to be specking into Windwalker here. The reason why we're specking into Windwalker is simply because there are no tank trinkets that I need from Mythic Plus or the raid anymore. And the items that I'm after, some of them are specific to the Windwalker specialization, so it makes sense to be in the Windwalker spec. I did 4 mythic bosses. I also did a ton of dungeons. I don't know if I did any delves, but that doesn't really matter too much to me anymore. And let's see what we can get. All right, okay. Haste Mastery boots. Unfortunately, these are going to not be all that great. I have crit verse boots with speed. While they are on the hero track, Haste Mastery just isn't that strong. Now, I could catalyze these. I believe they catalyze into crit mastery, which isn't also that great. I also got Sikran's Endless Arsenal. Now, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I already have Sikran's Arsenal somewhere in my bags. Or am I wearing it? I am wearing it. I already have it at 4 of 6 mythic at 632. So basically both of these slots are kind of cheeks, as they say. Now I did get crit haste gloves on the mythic track. These are generally going to be a little bit stronger than what I currently have on. What I currently have are crafted gloves at 619 with verse mastery. This is for a little bit of better stat distribution, but I think these gloves end up being better, and then ideally I'm going to eventually pull mythic shoulders that have crit verse on it. There's a couple of crit verse shoulders from this dungeon pool. If I'm not mistaken, there is a crit verse shoulder from Stone Vaults. Stone Vault has crit verse shoulders, and I thought Necrotic Wake also had or verse mastery. I thought there was another pair of crit verse shoulders from some dungeon. I just don't remember which dungeon. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, from City of Threads. So maybe at some point we can pull either of those shoulders. I also got a haste verse belt. The problem with this is that I do use the Adrenaline Surge clasp. That's going to be our embellish slot. That's going to just be much better. And then we have a mythic track Billy Club, which is high verse, low mastery. I'm pretty content with my Bedrock Breaker currently because of the stat distribution on it. It's also better for, into going into Windwalker when I decide to play Windwalker for the time being. And on top of that, my end game is to eventually have the Sikra or the Nexus Princess weapon. So there's no point in me taking this if I'm planning for the future while I have another ideal slot. Now, if maybe these weren't gloves and they were some other piece that I maybe already had or just didn't need at all, maybe I would justify taking the Billy Club. But for the time being, I think I go gloves for the 4 item level upgrade plus the better stat weights so I can eventually replace my shoulders down the road. So that's the plan. Not a great vault. I'm not thrilled with this, but it's at least I'm taking gear and not sockets, I guess is the way to look at it. So we're going to end up taking these guys. Now, there isn't an enchant I need to throw on them. So what's going to end up happening is I'm just going to slot these. Now, what I will need to do is I will need to figure out my stats a little bit because as soon as I equip these gloves, my haste is going to go up drastically, like another 2%. So I'm sitting at a base 7% haste, which is a little high. My haste is mostly coming from my sack brood that I took a couple weeks ago. I could replace this with a different trinket, something like Swarm Lord's Authority, which still gives haste, or I can replace it with Foul Behemoths, which gives main stats. I think my cloak is a little bit of haste, but the big thing is going to be my shoulders. If I can get a crit verse shoulder from either of those dungeons on the mythic track down the road, I can always replace it. But for now, we're just going to rock this. So I went up a little bit of item level, and I'm content with it. So that's pretty much it. Is there like a meta quest this week? Is it just delves and stuff? Or maybe it's a bug? Do the stone vault for rep. That's easy. And so the reason I'm checking these quests is because when they do give, oh look, it's the celebration token. That's pretty cool. We're going to pick this up. The reason I like to do these quests is because they give rep, which means I don't have to spam world quests because I find that boring. What's convenient, and this is if you're someone who is starting to look at alts as an option, getting renown is very good. Now, my renown's pretty shit. This is the only way I gain renown. I haven't really done a lot of side quests. The only thing I do is on my weekly, basically. But if you're starting to gear up alts, if you have a high enough renown, I think the realm is like around the 16 item level, or the 16 mark. You can see here that I can buy champion track boots for resident crystals, which you can see just this character alone has 7,000. I have about 18,000 across all my characters. So you can buy champion level gear right off the gate, like right out of the gate with this. You can also pick up crests as well to upgrade it. It's the same thing with the other factions. I don't remember what piece, but basically if you are targeting renown, you can have a fresh character, immediately get 4 champion level pieces. While they are 597 or 603, they can be upgraded all the way up to 619, which is super convenient, especially with the way that the alt catch-up works. So make sure you're doing your weekly quests. When you do have time, you can do world quests. I personally don't because I just don't care. But eventually, especially in a couple weeks here, I'm going to be able to start gearing some of my other characters with instant 597 gear. So just a thing to keep in mind. Anyways, let's jump over to another character. So I'm going to do my DH next just because I don't care so much about the DH and I'd like to amp up my Paladin a little bit. Now... I've been gearing my DH specifically for Brood Twister Mythic Prog. The nerfs to the boss have been good. Those happened a couple weeks ago, and it allows VDH to be a more competitive tank because they do have mass grip with Sigil of Chains every minute or less than a minute if you're running Binding. The problem is they don't handle the tank buster as well as a DH, or DK, because they don't have something like Death Strike, so it's hard to top them. You can also bring them purely for just damage. They do a ton of damage if you go for like a full DPS build. But we ended up finding a second DK, or a second Blood DK, so I'm not really needed for the fight anymore. So what I have been doing is I've been playing Windwalker, or I might just end up getting sat. But I do like the chance to play on this character. I don't know if I'll actually end up doing keys on it at all. I did some keys last night and I was not having a great time. Naturally, I'm not going to get great loot either. I got Hero Track pants, which I already have in my bank, and I got a Hero Track chest, which I already have equipped. Plus, I believe I'm going to actually end up keeping because it has high crit. We also got a Crit Master Cloak, probably not replacing that. And we got Crit Verse boots on the champion track, or on the veteran track. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking sockets, which is fine. I'm not in a rush to socket this right away because I don't really have any mythic track gear I'd probably throw it on. I would maybe do like bracers and or belt. Now, I generally play with the Adrenaline Surge clasp, so if I end up making this at max rank, I could just throw the socket in here, which is good. If not, I can use it for gold in the future if I'm desperate, but I'm not super into the DH right now. It has a fine playstyle, it just... Going from Brewmaster and Paladin to DH is just such a different playstyle that it's a little jarring, and I'm just not... There's nothing about the DH right now that like really gets me going. I think Paladin with Lightsmith and Brewmaster with both Shado-pan and Master of Harmony like feel good to play, but Demon Surge not necessarily all that engaging of a playstyle. It just makes your meta stronger. And Aldraki Reaver I think is underwhelming in terms of how it looks, and it's just like you have an extra button in your rotation. So yeah, probably not playing the DH too much. I know I'm not really selling it. I get it's an enjoyable tank, and a lot of people like playing it, just not for me this season. So I'm probably going to pull back on playing it a bit once we figure out our Brood Twister comp. Right now we have him about 50% health, so we're probably going to continue keeping the comp that we currently have, which is 2 tanking, which means that I'm going to be either on the bench or playing DPS. Last but not least, Paladin. Now, what's crazy about Paladin is they got pretty much a massive overhaul. I'm going to do probably a video talking about all of the changes in probably this week. I'd like to, because it happened this week. Some notable things that like Gift of the Golden Valkyr, for example, as well as Uther's Council have been reduced to 1-point nodes. For any Paladin players out there, this is really good news because it justifies us playing it. It makes it better to path through the node. And it just, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to fact check me on this, but I think it can bind it to make it the value of the 2 points. So there's a little bit better budgeting in this tree. We're probably still going to play something like this. We might not play, like we do have the path around Uther's Council, or you can play down through Sanctified Wrath, which is more than likely the play. So you're going to go like this instead. So it doesn't change too much, but it allows for better pathing just generally if you'd like to. There's no way you don't play Sanctified, right? No, there's no shot. They also made it so Inmost Light now reduces it even further. So this got buffed. We got a new talent called Refining Fire, which was it's an homage to the tier 2 set from Dragonflight, where your Avenger Shield did damage. So adds a little bit more potency into Avenger Shield for snap threats. They added more value back into Shield of the Righteous. They added more power back into Word of Glory. Now we did get some talents removed and taken away, so that's why we are seeing some of those buffs, because those types of buffs already insane. The prop Paladin, if you haven't been paying attention, has been just outperforming everyone and everything. And then as you can see, this tree already looks crazy different. I'm not going to go through the talents here. I'm probably just going to ignore this for now until the end of the video. Then I'm going to go back and figure out what I'm going to be playing exactly. But most of the pathing is probably going to have us going down more or less towards the like you kind of swing right here in the second section, and then you swing back left. But the pathing is just so good. So I'd imagine it's going to look something like this. Again, don't quote me. I'm just kind of winging it here. All right, anyways, let's jump into the vault aspect of this. I don't want to rant too long about Paladin in this video, because this is meant to be a vault video, not necessarily a, hey, this is everything that changed with Paladin. Now, for me specifically, I believe I am going to roll protection for this. I just have kind of weird trinkets. I don't know why this thing keeps popping up. Please leave me alone. My trinkets are kind of ass. I'm going to try to do some raiding this week to try to get like Swarmlord's Authority, for example. But outside of that, I only really did Mythic Plus this last week. I got a 10 done. I got a couple of other just keys done around like the 4 to 7 range. But ideally, we're going to be taking whatever's in the Mythic track. Probably not. Never mind. Ring of Dun Algaz, crit verse, not great stats. Paladins right now are going Haste Mastery crit verse. So being high verse is definitely not a set that I'm going to want, unfortunately. That's okay. We also have a hero track, Haste verse gloves. I'm currently wearing tier set champion track, but with leech on it. And then we also have the Ceaseless Swarm Gland, which has a chance to release pheromones, basically inflicting damage and reducing the damage mobs deal to us. Now, it's weird because, if I'm not mistaken, Ceaseless Swarm Gland doesn't pop up in logs, so you can't really see the amount of damage is actually mitigating, but let's take a look at our good friend Murloc IO. We can also look at Archon if we want to see what people are running, but I just want to take a look to see if this might be a trinket that I might actually opt into. So we're going to go to Protection Paladin, make sure it's in Mythic Plus, Paladins are doing some dirty work right now, doing some crazy level keys all the way up in the 3200 bracket. That's pretty sick. So let's scroll down to trinkets. We're seeing the 5 trinkets here. So we're seeing Sack Brood, obviously, and Swarmlords, because haste is a very valuable stat for both of them. Swarmlords Authority does an insane amount of healing. And then we're seeing like big mastery trinkets. So this is going to typically pair with your wings, dealing some pretty nasty big damn. Unfortunately, I don't believe it gives more than that. If you're looking at this, it only gives top 5 trinkets. So when we're looking for anything more, what we can end up doing is coming over to Archon GG, which will allow us to please stop popping up or I'm going to scream. Just run it. I don't care. Just unlock it. It's good. Stop making noise. Okay. I'm going to scream. Okay. Are we good? So, I have discs plugged in, man. Fuck it. Just unplugging it. It's fine. Okay, so when we're coming over to something like Archon, the data you're looking at here is going to be aggregated for Warcraft logs and basically logged runs, or I guess Armory as well. It's going to make Prop Paladin look pretty bad when you look at Mythic Plus, but we're looking at 7 to 16. If we go to high keys, Prop Paladin actually starts to look really good. It's sitting here right behind DH. I think after these buffs, it's going to take time for the data to get re-aggregated into the site, but I'd like to think that Paladin will go up. But we can click on Paladin and check out what they're running, so you can see Haste, Mastery, Crit, Verse. Like I said earlier, you can still see the old talent tree. This will take some time to get updated, but what I'm really looking for is their trinkets. Now, we should see a very similar output on what Murloc said, but what I like about Archon GG is that they tend to show you more trinkets. We are seeing Ceaseless Swarm Clan has been run in 12s up to this point. Now, of course, the highest keys are being done are 15, so obviously people who are playing are opting in to run that. Where even it's to the point where my Shadow Binding Ritual Knife is better than what I'm currently running. So it's making me think that I probably don't want to take the trinket, and I might lean towards the gloves because I can catalyze them. And obviously they're on the hero track compared to the champion track. The only alternative is I could take the ring, but I'll never use this ring. And unfortunately you can't catalyze it. I could also take this cloak, which maybe is better because I currently have a veteran cloak. Maybe not the worst thing ever. And then I have shoulders that are crit mastery on the veteran track. So I could take cloak, actually. Cloak would maybe be the biggest upgrade in this sense. Now, ideally, I would get the Rashanan cloak if I could. Or what I might end up doing is I might end up crafting a cloak, which is also a fine alternative. And with Verse being so kind of down bad, if anything, I'd probably rather take the gloves on the hero track. Kind of a harder decision when you have the hero track gear in mind, because unfortunately hero track gear is going to be obtained through doing dungeons just by themselves. So it's kind of hard to be like, oh, well, I should take this because, well, I can farm this technically. I can farm this. I can farm this. So this decision is kind of more or less lackluster. I guess I could technically take a socket and throw it on something. I am going to try to do one more key so I can make a better weapon. My item level should go up a little bit there. But I think in terms of like the biggest gain currently, like the short, like, I don't know, like the quick turnaround gain, I think I just take cloak. Yeah, I think I'm going to take cloak. Fuck it. I'm kind of happy with the trinkets I've been running, even though Ceaseless Swarm Clan could be kind of good. I don't know, I kind of have been liking the Siphoning Light brand though, so we'll take this. Cool. So one last thing I do want to mention before I end this video is that this week, if I'm not mistaken, you have access to another craft as well as another catalyst charge. So you can come over here and you can catalyze a piece if you'd like. I can go Verse Mastery. I can also catalyze my champion chest to get some big haste verse. I think I've been waiting actually on a hero chest before I catalyze anything. I still have 2 charges actually, but you should have another chest or another charge of the catalyst. So there's a pretty big dump of gear or yeah, items that you can get this week. Anyways, that's my video. Have fun in this new patch. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I might make a video about the content, but essentially there's a big old event happening in, if I'm not mistaken, they are happening down here. There's like these world bosses you can kill. If you come down into Tanaris, there is the Another Timely Invitation. There's this event going on here, World of Warcraft's anniversary event. So make sure you participate. There's a lot of cool rewards and transmogs and stuff. And yeah, good luck in your vault, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.